Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, devotees. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, text 7. So let's recite the verse. Abhyascha nirodhascha yato asti adhiya vasiyate sa ashraya param brahma paramatmeti shabdate. One more time. Abhyascha nirodhascha yato asti adhi vasiyate sa ashraya param brahma paramatmeti shabdate. Word by word meanings. Abhyasa, the cosmic manifestation. Cha, and Nirodha, and its winding up. Cha, also. Yata, from the source. Asti is. Adhiya vasiyate, become manifested. Sa, he. Ashraya, reservoir. Param, the supreme. Brahma, being. Paramatma, the super soul. Iti, thus. Shabdyate, called. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme One who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul is the Supreme Source of all the cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, he is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. Purport. Synonyms for the Supreme Source of all energies, as explained in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmadi asya yata vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmiti bhagwan iti shabdate, called Parabrahma, Paramatma, or Bhagwan. The word iti used here in this verse completes the synonyms and thus indicates Bhagwan. This will be further explained in the later verses, but this Bhagwan ultimately means Lord Krishna, because the Srimad Bhagavatam has already accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna. Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, the original source of all energy, or the Sammam Bonam, is the absolute truth, which is called Parabrahma, etc. And Bhagwan is the last word of the absolute truth. But even with the synonyms for Bhagwan, such as Narayana, Vishnu, and Purusha, the last word is Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravartate, etc. Besides that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as the sound incarnation of the Lord. Krishne swadhamopagate dharma jnanadhibhihi saha kalau nasta drisham esha puranarko dhunodita. Bhagavatam 1.3.43. Thus, by general conclusion, Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of all energies, and the word Krishna means that. And to explain Krishna or the science of Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam has been prepared. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this truth is indicated in the questions and answers by Sutta Goswami and great sages like Shaunaka. And in the first and second chapters of the canto, this is explained. In the third chapter, this subject is more explicit, and the fourth chapter even more explicit. In the second canto, the absolute truth as the personality of Godhead is further emphasized, and the indication is the Supreme Lord, Krishna. The summary of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, as we have already discussed, is succinct. This Supreme Personality of Godhead in the ultimate issue is confirmed by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita as Ishvara Parma Krishna Sajjidananda Vigraha. So it is concluded in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The complete subject matter is elaborately explained in the 10th and 11th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the matter of the changes of the Manu or Manvantras, such as the Swayambhuva Manvantra and the Chakshusha Manvantra, as they are discussed in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna is indicated. In the 8th canto, the Vaivashvata Manvantra explains the same subject indirectly, and in the 9th canto, the same purport is there. In the 12th canto, the same is further explained specifically regarding the different incarnations of the Lord.
I think the screen share is not changing, Mataji. Something is wrong. I see Vadanti Tattva with this verse for some reason. I don't know if it's for me or others.
Is it okay? It's almost over, this one. Let's see the next, okay?
Sure.
Thus, it is concluded by studying the complete Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Shri Krishna is the ultimate summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energy. And according to the grade of worshippers, the indications of the nomenclature may be differently explained as Narayana, Brahma, Paramatma, etc. Do you see the words now, Prabhu?
No, we see 1 to 11, Mataji. I don't know if it's for me or others. You can maybe stop sharing and start sharing again.
Okay, maybe, yeah. Okay. How do I, 1 minute, how do I, having problem here sharing, how do I, let's see.
Share screen, you see?
Yeah, it is. Is it okay now, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, good. So let's get started. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this particular verse is a really beautiful verse, and also with a little bit of a longer purport, but it's a very important verse. And the reason why it's important is because a lot some of the other previous verses depend on it. So in the last chapter, we had seen that Lord Brahma had heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 seed verses from Lord Krishna, Chatushloki, and that was what the entire 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam is based out of, and he asked Narad Muni to expand on them. And so in this particular chapter, which is also happens to be the final chapter of the 2nd canto, there is an explanation of 10 subject matters or 10 divisions of Bhagavatam by Sukadev Goswami. And already in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2.10.1, these divisions have been explained. And we won't go into the divisions, but we'll just mention them so that we can correlate with this verse. So in 2.10.1 itself, Sukdev Goswami has established these 10 divisions, and he's saying that there are 10 divisions in Bhagavatam. So the first one is the creation of the universe, which is Sarga. Then you have the sub-creation, which is Visarga. Then you have the planetary systems, which is Asthanam. Then you have protection by the Lord, which is Poshanam. And then the creative impetus, which is Uttaya. Then the change of the Manus, which is Manvantra. And then the science of God, and that is Isa Anukatha. Then returning home, then back to Godhead, which is Nirodha, and liberation, Mukti, and the Samam Bonam. So this Samam Bonam is Ashraya, or that Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes. And so our today's verse actually is dealing with this final Ashraya, that is the Samam Bonam. That is, Krishna is the final shelter, Krishna is all in all. So, and the last 9 verses, in a way, you have to know them, because they illuminate the 10th, this particular verse, in which says that Krishna is the shelter of everyone. So we have to have some factual knowledge of those 9 subject matters in order to totally understand this subject matter. Because everything is in relation with with the Lord Krishna, we have to say that all the other 9 divisions that are there, they are actually meant in some way to illuminate one's consciousness, so that we can have a good knowledge of Lord Krishna. So that is why this particular translation and this particular verse is so important. And if we see the translation of our words today itself, I was just counting, you see how many times the word supreme is explained, like once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. In just 2 lines, Prabhupada has used the word supreme 5 times, because that is what he wants to emphasize, that Prabhupada is very clear that Lord Krishna is the supreme being, and he really wanted to emphasize it, and he throughout the purport also, that has been his aim, to emphasize that Lord Krishna is the supreme being. So here you see it is a supreme being, supreme source of cosmic manifestation, and winding up reservoir. He's the supreme fountainhead, and he's calling him the absolute truth. So when we look at the word, like people use the word God and people use the word absolute truth. So what can be the some difference? So when you think about God, it can be different people may call different devtas God, like Surya Devta or anybody. It can be some sort of a controller. But the absolute truth is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the one who's the supreme controller, that is the controller of all controllers. So there is a difference, because the word absolute truth, which Prabhupada emphasizes everywhere, it really means the supreme personality of Godhead, and for us bhaktas in the personal aspect, really. So what is actually the Bhagwan actually mean? The word Bhagwan itself, I was reading somewhere, what does it mean? So the word itself can be divided into 2. One is Bhaga, which means opulences, and Van, which means one who possesses. So the whole word Bhagwan itself means one who possesses the all opulences, and the important word is all. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1.2.11 also, it is said that, Bhagwan itself, and also another thing that I wanted to tell in regard before we go to this particular subject matter is that Parashar, there are 6 opulences in total that Lord Krishna actually possesses, which others do not possess. And, in different proportions, you may have Lord Shiva, Brahma, and Narayana possessing them. But if you see, all the opulences are only actually possessed by Lord Krishna and nobody else. And that is why he is actually the Bhagwan, considered as Bhagwan. And so when we are talking about the absolute truth, different people call it by different names, like for instance, in this particular shloka, that is Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, it is said that learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan. So this kind of reminded me of, like the blind men, trying to find out who the elephant is. And, they're touching different parts of the elephant, but not the complete elephant. So what happened is some people they touch the trunk and they think that the elephant is the trunk. Some touch the leg and they think that the elephant is the leg. And so it is the elephant, but it's not really the complete elephant. So in the similar way, some people they look at the absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma, and that's fine, because that is also the absolute truth. But the bhaktas, of course, get the complete picture, which we'll go through later. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada's, he makes it very clear that this impersonal Brahman, it is mostly, the students of the Upanishads will, believe in it. Then we have another concept, the localized Paramatma, which is by the Hiranya Garbhas or the yogis. And us devotees, we are thinking about the Bhagwan concept. And the Bhagwan is actually the last word, because Paramatma is only partial. And as we all know, the impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence, which is like sun rays to the sun god. So it's not they are not getting the whole picture. But at the same time, we can't say that they are also wrong, because they are also talking about the absolute truth. But it's just that the personal aspect, that is the Bhagwan, which is the most complete picture, and that is what mostly the bhaktas actually have. So I was thinking is that why are we here firstly in this material world? Why are we here? And I was reading something about this United Nations statistics. So I think in November 15th, now we have 8 billion people, in this whole world. So, but I think in some ways we are very lucky to be part of the 8 billion, because firstly, human birth is very, very difficult. Then we have the human birth, by the blessings of Krishna. On the top of it, people who are spiritually inclined are even more rare, and we belong, to a spiritual group. So it's rare. On the top of that, a spiritual group who actually has an understanding of Lord Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is even more rare. So we even have the opportunity for that. So we have been given a lot of opportunities, we should be really grateful. Firstly, we are even breathing, that even the fact that we are breathing and getting this opportunity. A lot of people, there are a lot of species who are not even human beings, and then gratitude has to be there. And then another thing is that we are here because we forgot about Lord Krishna. And then, so what happens is we want to enjoy this whole material life and we want to forget Lord Krishna. And so impelled by our desires, we keep on taking birth after birth after birth. And it is not that, and we get so attached to material nature and so on that, we don't have any regard for going back home. So that is the reason why, we have to keep reincarnating. Um, but in this human life, we have the valuable opportunity to actually get out of this cycle. If we just surrender to Lord Krishna in all that we do, and that is what our opportunity is. And so, like we said, that we are familiar with concept of Bhagwan right now. We do know that Lord Krishna is the Samam Bonam, and of course he possesses the 6 opulences, which actually Parashar Muni, who was the father of Vyasdeva, explained. And I'll just mention those, that is riches, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Those are the 6. And that Lord Krishna is the supreme. It has been even accepted by Lord Brahma, because he says, of course, in Brahma Samhita, that Ishvara Parma Krishna Satchidanand Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That is, there are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagwan, but Krishna is the supreme, because none can excel him. He is the supreme person. His body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. And even in the Bhagavatam, actually 1.3.28, it explains that Ete chamsha kala pumsha krishnastu bhagwan swam indrai vyakulam lokam vridyanti yuga yogi. That is, all the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or part of plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So that is what the point that Prabhupada is making in this particular purport, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we know it actually, but I think we just need to be reminded from time to time that this is what, that we need to really concentrate our attention on Krishna itself. We've been given this human life, and this human life is so valuable. It should be, the thing is that, if for a few days we don't read, or for a few days we don't, contemplate on these things, then we tend to forget some of the little truths, so it's very, very important, because we are in this Kali Yuga mind, to keep hearing about Lord Krishna, so that it keeps on reminding us. So Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, actually, all of it, I was just going through the chapter 7 this weekend, and a lot of the shlokas there actually speak about the supremacy of Lord Krishna. Like, I'll just randomly read a few. Text 6, of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. It's perfectly clear. There's no two ways about it. And that Krishna is saying that he's the supreme. And the next verse, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. That's also very clear. Then he goes through, a whole lot of things, that I'm water, light, moon, and Om, and strength of the strong, and he goes through a whole lot list, which pretty much covers everything. And then he says that this divine energy of mine, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So mainly he's talking that, okay, I know that this is very difficult, that in the material life, this is very difficult, these 3 modes of nature, material nature. But if you have surrendered to me, it's not really very difficult at all. And then he concludes that one who's in full knowledge of me and who's engaged in pure devotional service, that person is the best, and for I am very dear to him, and he's dear to me. So all these verses, he's just going on telling us, that this is what you need to do. And And the last verse, of course, says that those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of all material manifestations of the demigods, of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me and the Supreme Personality of Godhead even at the time of death. Yesterday, we heard Premananda Mathaji's lecture about how it is so important to remember Krishna at the time of death. And this chapter 7 actually concludes in that. Krishna makes it so clear that if you are surrendered to him, then it's not going to be that difficult. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is quite a repeated theme. Even in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, he says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me in all their hearts. And actually, I'm just very amazed because, Krishna's, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has made it black and white. But in spite of that, there are some people who read the Bhagavad Gita and they still do not accept it, and because I've had conversations with maybe not people in ISKCON, but outside. And after reading the Bhagavad Gita also, they will not hear Krishna saying, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. What can be more clear? But even then, there are people who will not accept that. And I think we are so lucky that we are in Krishna consciousness, and we got Prabhupada who explained to us so clearly these concepts. So we are quite clear about them. And then there are people who consider Krishna to be a historical figure or an ordinary man, and Prabhupada makes it very clear. Only a fool can consider him as an ordinary man. I mean, there's Krishna is not really an ordinary man at all. And then also Prabhupada refers to 1343 in his purport, Krishna Swadhamopagate Dharma Gyana Dibhi Saha Kalau Nasta Drisham Esha Puran Narko Duno Dita, and in which he says that this Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has risen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc., and persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali get light from this Purana. And Prabhupada makes it very clear that both the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, they are for the people in Kali, they are the guides, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life. It is Lord Krishna himself personified. And so even if we read like the Srimad Bhagavatam or attempt to read even a verse, we have to be quite respectful, because it is the direct representation of Lord Krishna. And we are getting the opportunity to hear daily, or at least on a regular basis, as long as we can hear, we can read, we are getting the opportunity. So it's good to take advantage, whenever we can, because Prabhupada has made it very clear that these are the two books, for the people of Kali, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Those are the two. If you want to get out of this whole material entanglement, if you take those two books seriously, then that is what is really, really useful. And also, I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam 11.19.9, and I was thinking, okay, what does it take? And we all know, how we can get out of this material world. It's not so easy, but we at least know, what can be done. And Uddhav also, since we are talking about Krishna as the ultimate shelter, this verse from Uddhav also talks about Krishna as the ultimate shelter. He says, my dear Lord, for one who's being tormented on the terrible path of birth and death and is constantly overwhelmed by the threefold miseries, I do not see any possible shelter other than your two lotus feet, which are just like a refreshing umbrella that pours down showers of delicious nectar. So that's the only shelter really that we have. So so there are really three things. Of course, there are many things, but chanting is what is really, really important. then reading, and then our acharyas also suggest, of course, listening from the right sources, hearing from the last right sources, that uplifts our consciousness. And I wanted to end with a brief story of Srila Prabhupada. So this is the time when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was leading a parikrama party, and they were on the final day, and the party arrived at Kosi, which was the treasury of Krishna's father, that is King Nanda. And Prabhupada also came about. He came by Mathura, from Mathura by train, and then Allahabad, and then he came, by rickshaw. He somehow reached there. And then as soon as he came there, there was a sannyasi who was making an announcement. He says that evening there was a plan to go to see the deity of Sheshashai Vishnu, which was in a nearby temple. And he said that he told the parikrama party that you have a choice. You can either go to see the deity of Sheshashai Vishnu, or Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur will be speaking for the last time in that parikrama time. And either you can hear his lecture or you can go and visit the temple. And so Srila Prabhupada, he thought, what should I do? And then he thought, what can I see at this Sheshashai? Let me hear what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati will speak. Let me hear. He thought it very urgent, more urgent to hear. And he heard with rapt attention and, took in every word that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was speaking. And later on, he decided to take initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and, not during that day, but after a month or so. And he went humbly requesting him. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati at once recognized him. He said, yes. He told Prabhupada, he likes to hear. He does not go away. I've marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. So he remembered that Prabhupada likes to hear, and Prabhupada listened with rapt attention. That was one of the greatness of Prabhupada too. He could have also gone, but he preferred to listen. And because he listened and studied with such great attention that, he was able to be so successful, and why we are here also. So that's why there's, to raise our consciousness, hearing is also so important. In addition to, of course, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, in addition to chanting and, other activities of devotional service. I just like to emphasize that, every day we have the Bhagavatam class, and, we are hearing some verse, and, if we can hear and internalize as much as we can, not all of us can join every day, but, as far as possible, then that really helps lift up the consciousness. So I think we are out of time. So I'm just concluding right now. This is that verse which discusses that Krishna is the ultimate shelter, and that he is the ultimate supreme one, who is the supreme being, supreme soul, and the supreme source and the fountainhead. And he's the one whom we should be looking up to. And that is all that I have for today. If there's any comments, quickly we can take. Okay, if no comments, then I'd like to thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Mathaji. It was a very nice class. Really enjoyed hearing it.
Thank you so much,
yes.
Prabhuji.
It was a very nice class, especially at the end. Especially at the end, what you were telling about Prabhupada and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was really nice. Very, very eye-opening.
Yes, Prabhuji, he heard very attentively, which is a lesson to us. Yeah.
Yes, and I didn't know the detail that there was actually some deity installation at Sheshashai temple, and so Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was at a different location, and he was speaking. So he had the choice between the two.
Yes, Prabhu. He had a choice between going either to the temple or attending the talk, which was at a different location, I presume too, because a lot of the parikrama party chose to go to the temple and not attend the talk. but Prabhupada actually chose the other way around.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your comment.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Saragrahi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances to all glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. I had the same comment as Gopal Hari Prabhu. I also, it's a very nice class. This is very vast topic, but you have covered all the points very nicely from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And I really appreciated that story about Srila Prabhupada listening to staying to hear. That is very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I also learned something from that story, so yes. I'm resolving to listen more attentively going forward too. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. This is Sachi Sutadas. Please accept my humble obeisances. All Guru Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful class. I really like the points which you presented, like how many opportunities that we have as a human life, and then somewhere in the spiritual path, and then in Krishna consciousness, but still we are struggling. That's the challenge that we are dealing with. But somehow or other by Krishna's mercy, that we are given this opportunity to bring back to set our consciousness in the right path. So that's very inspiring. And also the last concluding point on the hearing, that's very touching, Mataji. So it's also said that hearing is the first and the last senses to develop and shut down respectively. So the importance of hearing is always there, both scientifically and also spiritually. That's very touching, the story what you narrated, Mataji. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, I like also that you brought up how hearing is the first and last sense to go. That is also a very important point. A few years back, I did not realize that hearing was the last sense to go, but it is. And so that is why it is so important, this hearing process, which the acharyas keep emphasizing, and we don't realize, but it's really very important. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Saragrahi Mataji, Shri Vallabhadaskar. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, and I completely agree, with everything that everyone else said. I concurred, with all the points that you've made. One of the things that resonated really well with me as well was, what I've been contemplating on recently. In fact, even last evening, I was talking to Zach Prabhu, and he was telling me what a wonderful opportunity he had, the experience he had, being at the yatra there in person, being at all those wonderful places in the presence of the devotees, and most importantly, being in the presence of Rompad Maharaj. So it was really, really, something that struck home to me, because we are not only very, very fortunate. I mean, if you think about it, we're sitting out here in Naperville, a far cry from being in Vrindavan, right? Number one. And for us to have such pure devotees going to the extremes of the world, into corners that are so obscure, you won't even think, right, of becoming Krishna conscious in a place like Naperville, which is so far away from Vrindavan, of all places, just as an example, right? And here we are able to receive that. We are so very, very, very fortunate. I mean, not just getting a book, but being able to get the association and being able to hear with such conviction that these pure devotees give to us. I mean, we are very, very, very fortunate to be able to be in that position of being able to receive, right? And what qualification do we have? Almost zero, right? So this is purely, I mean, invaluable. If you look at it, it's really, really invaluable for all of us. So talking about being fortunate, right? And then the way you ended, with the beautiful example, the pastime of Srila Prabhupada being in the presence of Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was just amazing, because one of the verses that comes to mind, which I really love in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is which most of us are familiar with. Shushoshatadhanasya, right? That was Vasudeva Katharuchi, Chyan Mahat Sevaya Vipra, Punyatirtha Nishevana. Punyatirtha, so these individuals, these pure devotees are places of pilgrimage. So we don't need to go anywhere else. Just being in their association, hearing from them itself, we get the taste for the Lord, the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva Katharuchi, right? And so just being in the association of such vipras or such pure devotees is like being in places of pilgrimage itself. So thank you again for bringing it together. A wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhu, for all your comments. Yeah, your points are all so good. I mean, these pure devotees come to give us lectures so many times, we really should be hearing each and every lecture, when they come. That was what I was thinking. I also actually went to that yatra. It was such a magical experience. And the lectures that Guru Maharaj gave, I mean, they were so illuminating, and they kind of further strengthened my faith. And I know what Zach Prabhu is talking about, because, I was there with him, and we all kind of experienced that. But again, it comes down to hearing again, as you said, we are fortunate. We have pure devotees among us who are day and night giving lectures, and so we should take advantage as much as we can. Thank you, Prabhu, for your valuable insight.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, if we don't have any more comments, then we can end. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for attending. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Thank you so much.